Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. Today, we are talking about how do I know if I have spiritual gifts? And there's two big reasons that I really want to talk about this topic. The first reason is there are a lot of people right now that are going through spiritual awakenings, that are starting to have spiritual gifts come online as we literally go through what a lot of people are calling this Great Awakening period. So there's a ton of people that are just starting to have their spiritual gifts kind of come on. And then there's also this other really big group of people that they've had spiritual gifts, but they've been unsure. And now they're starting to come out of the broom closet. They're starting to really just connect on a deeper level in terms of meeting more like minded people, not feeling like I have to fit in, and instead feeling like I can just find my crew instead of having to fit in with whatever culture or society you were born into. So, whenever we talk about spiritual gifts, there are a lot of different ways spiritual gifts can show up. So, if you're new here, my name's Madison. I am a Reiki master. Reiki is a form of energy healing. I channel the Akashic Records, and then I'm also a medium. So, I have a lot of experience exploring the Clair gifts specifically because I've really been trying to figure out like what are my gifts, what are my stronger gifts. If I have gifts that don't really work, can I like work with those, or is it not worth it? So we're going to go into all that. So let's talk Clair abilities. With the Clairs, we believe that there are five Clairs. And so if you think about how you have five senses, think about yourself also having five spiritual senses, where you have the ability to see with the third eye, you have the ability to hear, you have the ability to smell, taste, and feel. And I definitely think one of the most common but most overlooked is the claircognizance. And claircognizance is truly the ability to know things that there's no reason that you should know, right? So maybe this is you have a close friendship and you know this person is struggling and you can't explain how you know, but you just know what's going on with them. Maybe this is you're the kind of person that whenever you're around people, you can feel their emotions, or if the energy or the mood shifts in the room, you can like immediately pick up on it. All of those are signs that you're kind of having this clear cognizance and this really clear ability of feeling things that you can't really explain. They don't really make sense, but you just know, right? So that's what clear cognizance is. Whenever we talk about smelling and tasting, these are two things that I do not have this gift at all. So when we talk about like the Clair gifts, nobody that I've ever met has all five. Most people have one or two, normally a main one and then kind of like a secondary one. And so, smell and taste are two of what I have seen to be kind of the least common. I do actually teach Akashic Records and mediumship and Reiki, and during that, people have a lot of spiritual experiences that we unpack and decode. And as we do that, I've seen a lot of interesting things come through, but I have noticed the smelling and the tasting are not super common in terms of experiences people have. Another thing that I forgot to mention in terms of the feeling, if you have the gift of feeling, a lot of times if you have a spirit around you, you might literally feel somebody around you, but nobody's there. And you might also sense things like hot and cold, tingly, all of that, right? So there's definitely a lot to be explored with the gift of feeling, smell, and taste. The smell and taste are normally abilities that are associated with mediumship. And so, what I mean by that is maybe you are connecting with your grandmother and all of a sudden you taste her pecan pie that you haven't tasted in 20 years. That's a clear sign that your grandmother is there with you, even if maybe you can't physically see. And I think that's what's hard is the spiritual world. We talked about how there's five clear abilities. Only one of them is actually seeing, and that's really like seeing through the third eye mostly. And so There is also the gift of clairaudience. So I like to refer to this as like podcast downloads or like the internal dialogue. So I was talking to somebody, I do spiritual circles a couple times a month. And so I was talking to somebody at one of my spiritual circles recently, and she was like, yeah, sometimes I know there's a higher form of consciousness that's communicating like with me, but it's like it comes in as like a thought, but I know it's not my thought, but I know it's like communication. That is clairaudience. So that's probably your higher self or a spirit guide coming in with some guidance. And when it comes in as clairaudience, for me, it very much comes in like it's a conversation, like it's a podcast download. And I say podcast download because sometimes whenever it first started, I felt like I would get like words or phrases. And now I've worked with that clear enough that now I might just get like, 2, 3 sentence kind of downloads of here's the answer to the next step or whatever. And a lot of these abilities show up in different ways, right? So for me, I have clairaudience and I also have clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is the ability to see through the third eye. So I can see spirits that are around. I can hear and kind of converse telepathically with spirits that are around. And I can also do that in the Akashic Records. So whenever I go into the Akashic Records, I'm able to essentially channel in a way where I am in the Akashic Library working with an Akashic guide to be able to answer questions for myself or for you if I'm doing an Akashic Records reading on you. So those are a breakdown of the 5 abilities. So the last one was clairvoyance, which is the ability to see things that aren't in the 3D. And sometimes this is, yeah, you might see spirits that are around in the day to day, but this can also be whenever you're in a deep state of meditation. You might have visions or pictures or things like that that come through. So there's a lot of different ways that these gifts show up. But if you're somebody that right now you're in a space where you have a heightened intuition, you right now are in a space where you're like, oh yeah, I'm having quite a few of these different clear experiences. You are not alone. You are definitely part of this wave of ascension, this wave of awakening that is coming through right now. So, personally, what I've channeled is that we're going through a process of over the next 10 months, like so many people awakening. And so I think that there's a lot of other people that have channeled similar things. Like we're in just this big period of great awakening, this period of people stepping into their gifts, people having gifts come online, is what I like to call it. And so that may be like for me, I've kind of had gifts on and off for my whole life. Sometimes I wasn't sure what to do with them and I kind of shut them down. But some people just one day they have an experience and that kind of opens the door to, okay, I could continue this or I could kind of, halt it. And I do want to say that, like, a lot of times when we're talking about working with our clear abilities, if you have an experience come through and you don't want it, or you're like, oh no, that was weird, I'm uncomfortable, I'm scared, it's too much, it probably won't happen again. And I mean, it might down the line when maybe you're more ready for it, but it definitely, from what I've seen, is something that you really actively have to work with the gift and want to explore the gift further in order to really develop and enhance the gift. And so for me, I do a lot of work in the Akashic Records, connecting with the spirits through mediumship readings, and overall, I have the same gifts that come through no matter what experience that I'm having. And most of the people that I work with have found the same. If they have clairaudience, they have clairaudience throughout all the experiences. If they have clairvoyance, they have that through all the experiences. So let's switch gears from clairs to talking about psychic abilities, because this is another big way where people are like, I'm pretty sure I have gifts, but like I can't prove it. And that's always the hard part, right? Because in the 3D world, we're taught like that if it doesn't exist, if it's not, physically here, it doesn't exist. And then things like psychic gifts, like we can't explain them because our world is just not set up to understand that level of consciousness yet. But we're getting there. A lot of you are tuning in to, learn more about your psychic gifts, your clair abilities. And so with your psychic gifts, this can come through in a lot of ways. A way that I've seen it show up for some of my clients whenever they're kids is, or maybe as adults, somebody's about to call or text and then they do. That is I would say like a smaller scale way that psychic gifts show up. But then you also have people that are, able to go into the Akashic records and they're able to actually see, or, through whatever their gift is, information about what's to come in the future. Maybe they're remote viewing it. Maybe they're asking in the Akashic records about future timelines that are likely. And so there are a lot of ways that you can either tap into psychic gifts, or some people do have, of course, just like the psychic downloads that come through. Maybe they come through dreams, maybe they just come sporadically, but that is very much a gift as well. And I would also say that falls in the same category of like whatever your Clair is, your psychic downloads will probably come the same way. All right, so spiritual gifts, moving on, mediumship. Okay, so if you're not familiar, mediumship is the ability to connect with somebody who is past. And this ability is honestly very cool, but a lot of people think it's very overwhelming. And I think a big piece of it is one, the acknowledgement of like, oh, this is real, And then I think there's also the fear of like, is this safe? And that's why I always recommend people, if you want to start channeling, you want to start learning about gifts, do it through the Akashic records, because that's a way of going into a container of light and being protected from any negative spirits or dark entities or things like that. And so you can actually go into the Akashic records and access, mediumship abilities that way as well. That's personally how I teach people whenever I teach mediumship, is we go into their Akashic record, we connect with their Akashic guide in there, and then we sort of work with that guide to learn how to connect with other spirits in a way that is safe and in a light container. So mediumship, it can come through in all different ways. Sometimes it can be going back to like the taste and the smell. I had a client who they could smell a specific cigarette that their grandpa used to smoke whenever he was around. And so that is a very also way that like mediumship is showing up. Just because you're not seeing spirits doesn't mean that they're not around you. Because if you think about, we're in the 3D right now, but essentially what we exist in exists up to 12 dimensions, right? So if you think about angels and the Akashic records existing in like the 5th, 6th dimension, once you start to do this ascension work, you're able to actually tap into the spirits and the entities that are in these other realms that are in like the 5th and 6th dimension that are probably existing around you right now. You just might not know how to tap in or how to explore that further. Okay, last way spiritual gifts can show up. And this I always think, in my experience, so whenever people have this experience or this gift come through, a lot of times I see it being their spiritual gifts or signs starting to come through. But it's almost like a little nudge, like, okay, if we send you this, are you going to act on it, think it's crazy? What, So dreams. So some people have dreams where past loved ones come and visit them. Some people have dreams on very specific next steps. I have a customer who one time dreamed lottery numbers because she needed some money to get out of a tight spot. Like crazy dream stories that I've heard that can also kind of fall under the psychic gifts or the mediumship or the Clair abilities. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, dreams are meaningless. And I think a lot of times there's things to be unpacked from dreams, especially if you are maybe being triggered either in a positive or negative way by those dreams. I definitely think there's probably more to unpack there then. So if you are listening to this video and you're like, man, I have all these spiritual gifts, like I don't know what to do, I don't know how to channel, I don't know where to start, I have a few different options. Okay, so I have a 5D membership, which is probably the number one thing I would recommend. And so the 5D membership, it already has a library of how to connect with your higher self, how to connect with your Akashic record, basic things like that to kind of get you in a process where you feel comfortable going in and starting to do these deep states of meditation and channeling. And then if you're not quite there yet, but you want to learn about things like the concept of time being simultaneous, videos like that are also there as well. And so 5D membership, you can try it a week for free on my website. My website's linked in the show notes and in my bio. And so You can try the 5D membership for free for a week. And then after that, if you choose to join and feels aligned, then I release new messages every single Monday. It's channeled exclusive content where either I'm taking you into the records. We actually did a past life regression on one recently. And so these are exclusive things that you only get through the membership. YouTube, a lot of educational content, which is beautiful, but more of my kind of like channeled stuff. Um, on my website. And so other ways you can work with me is I do offer one-on-one readings. So I do Akashic Records readings, which is going in and accessing your soul's library, going in and accessing things like your soul purpose. If you have spiritual gifts and aren't sure what to do with them or where to start, this is a great thing to do. Also things like soul contracts. Maybe it's a romantic soul contract. Maybe it's a karmic soul contract. Maybe it's a family member, that you feel like is a karmic or soul contract. So all of those things, including those in past lives, exist in the Akashic Records. So if you want me to tap into that and do a channeled reading for you, I also do channeled readings in the Akashic Records. I do them via Zoom, so you can join from anywhere in the world. And that is also linked on my website. Some other things that I would just love you guys' feedback on. One, if you have any topics that you want me to ask the Akashic Records about going into the new year, just let me know. Happy to kind of pop into the Akashic Records and ask any questions about things you guys are wanting to know about, anything spiritual, metaphysical, all of that, okay? Other thing is I do not have the next retreat location picked yet. So if you guys have any opinions on where the next retreat should be or something you'd like to experience on the next retreat, you can absolutely DM me or email me. My email is linked in my bio, and then all of my socials are at A Holistic Awakening. So you can DM me on Instagram or TikTok if you have any ideas or feedback or things you want to learn. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next episode, and as always, happy healing.